Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Brett. When my wife handed me divorce papers in front of her family, who believed I was never good enough for her, what her and her family didn't know was that I had my own gift prepared for her. And when she opened it, let's just say the room didn't stay so cheerful after that. What they didn't see coming was that I had already made my move, weeks before they made theirs. I remember the day I met Angela before she became my wife. It was on a day neither of us planned. She came into my auto shop needing a quick fix for her car. There was a knocking sound coming from her engine bay, and she told me later that her favorite auto shop wasn't available that day. That was the only reason she even ended up at my place. Funny how life works. What felt like just another routine job ended up being the start of something big. After I took care of the issue and got her car sorted out, we exchanged contact information. Nothing serious at the time. But somehow, we kept in touch. Over the next few months, our conversations became more regular. Angela worked at a mid-sized tech firm. I ran my auto shop myself as a small business. Still, I managed to charm her. I don't know exactly how it happened, but she got hooked on me, and we started dating not long after. Back then, everything felt perfect, as we figured things out one day at a time. But things started shifting once marriage entered the conversation. That's when I started noticing that not everyone was rooting for us. From the very beginning, her family never fully accepted me. I tried not to let it bother me. I told myself, she loves me. That's what matters. Her family's opinion doesn't carry weight. But I was wrong. Angela had a very close relationship with her family. They were always doing things together. I underestimated how deep those ties ran. Even with the red flags waving right in front of me, I went ahead with the marriage. I thought her love would be enough to balance everything else out. But I didn't realize then just how much her family's opinion shaped her decisions. Still, we got married, moved in together, and started our life as a couple. The early years were fine. We got along well, and our day-to-day routine worked. The only real issue was visiting her family. Now, don't get me wrong, I never expected to be treated like royalty. But there's a certain way you expect to be received when you're married to someone's daughter. A basic level of courtesy, maybe even a little warmth. Every time we went over there, I felt like I didn't belong. From day one, it was like walking into a room where everyone had already made up their minds about you. I could feel the tension, mostly from her mother. She didn't even try to hide that I wasn't welcome. Her father was quieter, didn't say much, but his silence spoke volumes. It was clear I wasn't the man they'd pictured for their daughter. They saw me as nothing more than a guy who fixes cars, not someone good enough for their daughter. They never came out and said it directly, but you could feel it. Every visit felt like I had to prove myself, like I was constantly being measured against a bar that I didn't even know existed. And any time I brought these things up to Angela, she'd say the same thing every time. You don't have to love them, just tolerate them. We don't live with them, we only visit. At first, I tried to see her point. I figured I could put up a front whenever we visited, act like everything was fine, and just deal with it for her sake. That worked for a while. But deep down, I was ignoring something important because Angela wasn't just close to her family. She was influenced by them more than I realized. As Angela's career began to soar, she was climbing the ladder faster than most people her age. At first, I was genuinely proud of her. I saw how dedicated she was, how she put in long hours, and I admired her drive. When she got promoted the first time, I even surprised her with dinner and a bottle of her favorite wine. It felt like a win for both of us. But over time, things started to feel less like ours and more like hers. Her new role came with more responsibility, and with that came longer hours, endless Zoom meetings, work calls that bled into dinner time, and weekends that used to be ours slowly vanished into her deadlines. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't sitting around doing nothing. I run my own auto shop. I've always worked hard. The difference is, my income was steady but modest. It covered our bills, kept food on the table, paid the mortgage, and still left room for little things here and there. I never felt insecure about it. I saw us as a team. She earned more, sure, but I never thought money would change the way we saw each other. Turns out it did. At first, it was subtle. She'd cancel plans because she had something urgent at work. I'd make dinner and eat alone. We used to talk about our day every night before bed, but that turned into her scrolling through work emails while I just lay there, quiet. I'd ask, "Everything okay?" And she'd mumble something about a project or how exhausted she was. And I believed it. I thought maybe once things calmed down at work, she'd come back to me like before. But she didn't. She became more and more invested in her job and less invested in us. I reminded myself that I loved her and that marriage has seasons, some high, some low. But eventually, I started to feel like a stranger in my own marriage. She didn't even seem to notice. Angela and I had been trying to conceive for a while. We both talked about it a lot before her promotion and career advancement. So when she told me she was having pregnancy symptoms, I was hopeful. We booked an appointment and went to the doctor together, all nervous and excited. But after running the necessary tests, the doctor sat us down and gave us news that was both disappointing and revealing. Angela wasn't pregnant. Now obviously, I was sad about that. But what struck me more wasn't the negative test. It was what came after. The doctor, being very professional and compassionate, started asking questions about Angela's daily routine, her workload, and how much rest she was getting. After Angela described her typical week, which was basically non-stop meetings, late-night reports, and constant emails, the doctor looked at her and calmly said that with the level of stress she was under, it would be difficult for her body to even prepare for pregnancy. Stress, especially the kind she was absorbing day in and day out, was a major factor that could hinder conception. That was the doctor's honest, science-based feedback. We left the clinic in silence. On the ride home, I kept expecting her to say something like, "Maybe I do need to slow down," or "Let's talk about how we can make this work." But she didn't. Instead, she jumped back into answering emails and taking calls, like nothing had happened. Days passed, and I waited to see if she would bring up the doctor's advice. But nothing. Not one adjustment. Not even a conversation. That hurt. Because we had both said we wanted this. We said we were in it together. But suddenly it felt like I was the only one carrying that hope forward, while she had quietly dropped it. Eventually, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I chose a quiet evening and asked her plainly if she was planning to make any changes at work to give us a better shot at starting our family. I was careful with my words. But she didn't take it well. She flared up almost immediately, telling me I was trying to hold her back. She said that just because she was ambitious and doing well in her career, I couldn't handle it. That I was threatened by her success. And then she said, "My parents were right about you. You're not aligned with where I'm going." I sat there in disbelief. What started as a simple conversation about family planning turned into an attack on my character. I couldn't understand how we got here. All I wanted was to have a child with my wife. All I asked was that we take the doctor's advice seriously. But now I was being painted as insecure, controlling, and unworthy, all in one breath. That was the moment I realized this was about something deeper. She had been holding things in, things I didn't even know she felt. And clearly, her family's opinion of me was starting to echo in her voice. After that night, I decided not to bring up kids anymore. But avoiding that one subject didn't fix the bigger problem. In fact, it only revealed how wide the gap between us had become. We stopped being a couple trying to build a future together. We had become two people living under the same roof, carrying very different definitions of what our marriage should look like. And honestly, that silence between us was louder than any argument we could have had. After the argument, I started noticing changes in Angela. It felt like she'd flipped a switch. She became very image-conscious almost overnight. Suddenly, she was obsessed with how people saw her, what she wore, and who she was around. She started dressing differently. She'd spend hours getting ready just to grab drinks with coworkers, even on days when she wasn't working. I've always admired that she takes care of herself. But this was different. What really got to me was how she started spending more and more time with her work friends, even when there wasn't a work event or meeting. She'd be out late, saying she was networking, or just blowing off steam. Meanwhile, I'd be home alone, wondering what happened to the woman I married. Our intimacy died quietly. Conversations became short, almost like we were business partners instead of a couple. What used to be warm, joking chats about life turned into cold, emotionless exchanges about chores or bills. Then she began comparing me with other people. She'd say things like, Chris just got promoted again and his wife doesn't have to worry about anything. Or maybe you should think about expanding the shop. Other mechanics are doing more. These weren't suggestions. They were jabs. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about walking away. Almost every day, I'd wonder if I should just pack up and leave. The marriage was clearly decaying, and I was the only one trying to hold it together. But a part of me was still holding on. I kept asking myself, what would people say if I left? Would they blame me? Would her family say they were right? So, I stayed and kept pretending. We went out for events together, like everything was fine. I smiled in pictures. I left to hear jokes, all while knowing the life we had was long gone. But one night changed everything. Angela had come home late again, said she was tired. She just changed into her nightwear, climbed into bed, and started texting someone. I was sitting in the living room. Later, when I walked into the bedroom, she had fallen asleep with her phone still in her hand. The screen was still lit up. I picked it up and went through the chat thread that confirmed everything I had feared. She was chatting with the same coworker she always said was just a friend. The one who called at odd hours, the one she stepped outside to talk to. I scrolled through their conversation and my heart sank. They weren't just talking. They had been spending time together, intimately. He was telling her to divorce me, telling her she deserved better, telling her to stop dragging this out. And the worst part was that she agreed to divorce me soon. Her statement broke me. It was like she had already decided, and I was just in the way. I sat there in silence, staring at that screen, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. I didn't confront her. Instead, I took screenshots. I saved them all. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix the marriage and started preparing to end it on my own terms. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. But now I had proof. I realized I had to think clearly, because if this ever made it to court, it couldn't just be about how I felt. It had to be about what I could prove. So I started keeping track of everything. Every cold shoulder, every disrespectful comment, every time she chose to stay out late without a real explanation. I wrote it all down, quietly, patiently, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to protect myself from the storm I could see coming. One night, we got into an argument when I brought up the idea of seeing a marriage counselor. She didn't just say no, she lashed out. Her words were mean, and she made it clear she had no interest in saving our marriage. I knew that conversation mattered, so I recorded it. That might sound extreme, but when you're married to someone who's already emotionally gone and probably planning their exit, I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. But I knew that wasn't enough. I needed undeniable proof of the affair. For weeks, I tried to trail her on days when she came home late. I'd watch her location, wait near her job, and even drive by places I knew she liked to go. But nothing stuck. She was careful or just lucky. Either way, I kept missing it. That's when I realized I couldn't do this on my own. So I contacted a private investigator. I gave him everything I knew. It didn't take long. Less than a week later, the investigator handed me photos and video clips. Angela is with him. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. That was all I needed. Now I had screenshots from their late-night chats, audio of her rejecting therapy in the harshest terms, and now visual proof of her affair. With all that lined up, I called my lawyer. I filed for divorce right before Thanksgiving. I had the papers in hand, but I didn't serve them immediately. Instead, I waited. We always spent Christmas at her parents' house, and if there was one place where I was constantly made to feel small and unwelcome, it was there. But this time, I was going to show up differently. I was about to serve them a moment they'd never forget. By the time Christmas rolled around, my marriage to Angela was already dead. We were just playing a role for the outside world, but behind all of that was nothing but silence, tension, and distance. The love was long gone. The respect, too. But even with all that, I never expected Christmas morning to go the way it did. We arrived at her parents' place on Christmas Eve. It was tradition. But this time was different. I was quiet, more than usual. I barely engaged in conversations. I was just waiting for the right moment. Then came Christmas morning. Everyone was gathered in the living room, wrapping paper was being torn open, and gifts were being passed around. I sat there, letting the moment play out. That's when Angela walked up to me, all smiles, and handed me a neatly wrapped envelope. She didn't say much, just stood there with this confident look on her face, like she knew exactly what kind of reaction she was about to get. I opened it slowly. I already had a hunch, but even then, seeing it with my own eyes was something else. Divorce papers, filed just days before. And as I held the document in my hands, her family started laughing. They were enjoying it, but I didn't flinch. I looked up at Angela and said, "That's funny. I got you something too." I reached behind the chair and pulled out a small, black gift box. She looked confused for a second, like she hadn't prepared for me to have a comeback. She slowly unwrapped it, and the moment she opened the lid, everything changed. Inside the box were my own divorce papers, already signed. Along with those were printed photos of her and the man she had been seeing behind my back. There were screenshots of their private messages. But that wasn't all. I included a USB flash drive. I told her she might want to watch the videos on there when she had some privacy, because those videos showed more than screenshots ever could. The room, once filled with laughter, went dead silent. No one said a word. Angela's face lost all color. She knew I'd been quiet for a reason, but she had no idea I'd come prepared for this exact moment. I stood up slowly, took a deep breath, and looked at every single person in that room. "I may not have been what your family wanted for her," I said, "but I was loyal. She humiliated me more than I can tolerate. We both got what we came for." Then I added, "I'll see you in court," turned around, and walked out of that house. The divorce process that followed wasn't smooth. Angela fought hard, probably thinking she could still twist the narrative. She told the court I wasn't a good husband, tried to paint me as unmotivated, emotionally distant, anything to shift the blame. But facts speak louder than words. The evidence I brought forward of the affair, the emotional neglect, and the way she had deliberately alienated me in our marriage left no room for doubt. And here's the part that stung her the most. Because she earned significantly more than I did, she was to pay me a settlement. Our assets were split down the middle, but I walked away with more than just half. She wasn't happy about the outcome. She started calling my phone constantly, leaving voicemails laced with anger and insults. When that didn't get to me, she resorted to texting, long messages blaming me for everything, mocking me, trying to provoke me. I didn't answer a single one. I didn't feed into it. Eventually, I blocked her number altogether. That chapter of my life was over. Honestly, when it was all said and done, I had time to sit with the truth of what happened. And I'm not going to lie to you. Losing my marriage wasn't easy. You don't spend years building a life with someone and then just walk away without feeling something crack deep inside. Even after everything Angela did, I still had to grieve what we were supposed to be. That part hurt. But here's what gave me peace. I didn't let her or her family drag my name through the mud like they clearly planned to. They truly believed I was going to crumble. But instead, I matched their energy. I may not have been what her family wanted, but I was loyal. I stayed true, and I didn't let them humiliate me.